Keith, how are you? Good morning and welcome to City Hall. We'll get started this morning with our invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. We are glad to have Michael McDaniel here from Northeast Missionary Baptist Church. I have known Michael since he was a high schooler at John Marshall and was the high school state football player of the year back in 1992. He spent some years in Tulsa but is now back in Oklahoma City. Michael, it's great to have you back in our community. Thanks for bringing your family back. Afterwards, I'll ask Councilman Skip Kelly to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Would everyone please stand for the invocation?
Let's bow. Father, we thank you for this honor and privilege to be able to serve and to be servants. Lord, to do your business, we ask that you would continue to bless these men and women who serve daily, that are representatives, ambassadors. God, we pray that you would illuminate them, that you would strengthen them, give them fortitude to continue to forge paths of positive relationships that may benefit our community and our city. And it's in your Son, Jesus' name, we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This morning we have a proclamation to declare it Irish American Day. And we have Paula Jones here. She is the parade coordinator, along with David Egan, who's this year's parade marshal, and Tim O'Connor and Dale Gannon. Would you all come up here and stand? We'll ask the clerk to read a proclamation as we get settled.
Whereas Irish Americans have made important contributions to American art, music, and literature, and whereas many Oklahomans claim ancestors who were immigrants from Ireland, and whereas in the past decade, Oklahoma has experienced a significant flow of migration to the state, and many of the residents are of recent immigrant stock. And whereas St. Patrick's Day is a traditional occasion of honoring the contribution of Irish heritage to Americans. Now therefore, Mick Cornett, the mayor of the city of Oklahoma City, does hereby proclaim March 17th, 2011 as Irish American Day in Oklahoma City.
You're welcome very much. Let's show our appreciation for Irish American Day and St. Patrick's Day coming up.
The parade this year will begin in, believe it or not, really downtown Oklahoma City with all the stuff that you guys have got going on down there. I'm impressed. It's going to start at 5th and Broadway and continue down E.K. Gaylord and then in through Bricktown on Sheridan.
What time should people gather if they want to be a part
They need to be there no later than between 12 and 12:30. The parade starts immediately at 1 o'clock.
Okay, parade starts at 1 o'clock on which day?
On the 19th,
Okay, so
Saturday.
A week from this
Exactly. And we planned on having really, really good weather, and we expect that to be on your agenda today to make sure you order it. We'd appreciate it.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paula. Thank you all. Congratulations, David, on being this year's marshal. You bet. Here. See you, Dale. Thank you, Tim. You bet. We are on item 3 of the council agenda. We'll entertain a motion for items A, B, and C in the appointments. All right, cast your vote.
Quick question.
Yeah, passed unanimously. Yeah, Larry?
1A, Mayor, are these the 3 gentlemen that were on the list that got deferred, or has there been any change? I couldn't recall.
There has not been any change.
Thank you, sir.
On to item 4, the Journal of Council Proceedings. This is to receive the Journal of Council Proceedings for March 1st, and item B is to approve the Journal of Council Proceedings for February 22nd. We have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions about the Journal? All right, cast your votes. Passed unanimously. Item 5 is request for uncontested continuances.
Mayor, starting this morning, there's a couple on page 15 under item C1. C1B, we ask that be deferred 2 weeks until March 22nd. That's 304 Northwest 22nd Street, C1B. And C1C, we also ask that be deferred 2 weeks until March 22nd. That's at 1000 Northwest 37th Street. Moving to page 16, under item 8D1, item H, 1312 Windermere Avenue, we ask that be stricken. The owner has removed. Item L, 2236 Southwest 24th Street, we ask that be stricken. The owner has repaired. Item M, 1508 Southwest 26th Street, we ask that be stricken. The owner has removed. Moving to item 8E1, item A, 3727 Dow, we ask that be stricken. The owner has secured. Item F, 1309 North Page, we ask that be stricken. The owner has secured. Moving to page 17, under item L, 1135 Northwest 20th, we ask that be stricken. The owner has secured. Item O, 824 Northeast 26th Street, we ask that be stricken. The owner has secured. And item V, 3605 Southwest 41st Street, we ask that be stricken. Again, the owner has secured.
Should have been paying better attention. Did you say 8C1, A, B, and?
No, just B and C.
Just B and C, so A is still on the docket.
That's correct.
We have one person that signed up to speak on C, just to let Bill Comstock know that we won't be viewing that issue today.
I do not oppose the request for continuance.
Okay, thank you, Bill.
Diane has one too.
The municipal councilors have, on page 18, item A, 1D, we ask that be stricken. It's been settled.
Okay, which item was that, Diane?
It's on page 1 of your agenda. It's listed 8I1D. I think it's I1D.
8I1D.
Yes.
One of these, one of the claims recommended for denial.
Thank you
Okay.
for tonight.
All right, thank you. Any other requests for uncontested continuances? All right, we'll recess the council meeting, convene as the Oklahoma City Municipal Facilities Authority. There are 5 items. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions on the MFA? Cast your votes. Passed unanimously. We'll reconvene the council meeting with the consent docket. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any individual considerations on the consent docket?
Your Honor, I have a question on VIL 6L.
All right. Okay. Pat, you want to go ahead and get started with item 6L?
Thank you, Your Honor. Just a question. This has to do with some our bike route projects. I was curious as to the status of our new signage, because I know we've taken down signs in a lot of places and they've not been replaced yet, and what the status of those signs are, progress we've made.
Councilman, we're just about ready to come back to you with a recommendation. We have an ordinance that's been drafted. We're still reviewing the ordinance to make sure that it's what we think we should carry forward. When that decision is made, and that should be made this week, we'll take it to the Traffic Commission, which meets on the 21st of this month, and then we will come back to council the first available meeting after that, probably early April.
Thank you. But I would like to make sure the council is advised of the signage and the timing before we can start that project, so we can, answer the questions of our constituents.
Yes.
All right, item AC, Sam?
Thank you, Mayor. This has to do with an interlocal agreement with the school district, District I-89. It's a long-standing partnership with Oklahoma City Schools for the Play in the Park program. I think we're 17, 18 years in a very successful run with the school district. And just to lift it up as one of those partnerships that has worked well, and as budgets improve, I would hope, again, we had some consideration a couple of years ago that the opportunity would present itself again to build on this successful working relationship in a way that we could consider at these same school sites with our Parks Department after school programming. We've talked about it. Partnership continues to thrive in the summer. And I think, again, it's an opportunity we just need to keep in front of us as things improve and ways to further our working relationship with the schools. And Mayor, I just ask if I might just have a list, not today, but of the current sites, City Manager, current sites where we have those interlocal agreements. Thank you very much.
Any other comments or questions for the consent docket? All right, we have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passed unanimously. Item 7 is the concurrence docket. Okay, are there any individual considerations on the concurrence docket? Okay, cast your votes. Passed unanimously. Item 8 are items requiring a separate vote. We start with the de-annexation issue with the City of Yukon. I think council's probably been briefed on this issue. Larry, Gary, it's out in West Oklahoma City. You guys okay with this? Okay. You want to make a motion then? One of you want to make a motion on item 8A?
Mayor?
Yes.
I received a long, interesting email from a lady who opposed it. As near as I could tell, the basis for her opposition was that we had spent money resurfacing the road, and in fact we may still have some outstanding bonded debt on the road. And as I read through the email, that basically was her concern. It seems to me that the road was damaged or worn out by the use of Oklahoma City taxpayers and citizens over time, and what remains once it's fixed is the long-term maintenance of the road. So while had we known perhaps that Yukon was going to want to change the name of it to Yukon, change Mustang Road to Yukon, because that's where we're going to put their new high school, and they didn't want Mustang's name on their in front of their new high school. The real consideration for us long-term is the long-term maintenance of the road, and I have not had an opportunity to respond to her, but I feel like I'm doing so today. It's not that I don't think any of us did not consider that. And I started to say earlier, had we known that at some point in time we were going to very quickly going to be transferring or de-annexing this property to Yukon, we might have had a different idea for how we prioritize roads. But the fact is, that's all that's done, and the long-term maintenance of it will be borne by Yukon. And I do think it makes good sense, and I'm going to vote for it, but I didn't want it to pass without the individual that wrote feeling like that there wasn't consideration being given to her viewpoint. If there were a way to get the money back, that'd be all right, but there isn't. And the future is just one of maintenance, and Yukon's taking that maintenance. So it seems to me this is reasonable.
Yeah, Larry?
I wonder if we could have Dennis come forward and just talk about what the implications are for us as far as the maintenance on both this stretch of road on Mustang Road, now to be Yukon Parkway, and then on 10th Street also, what this does as far as maintaining those roads into the future and how it's beneficial both to Oklahoma City residents and Yukon residents who use those roads.
We have been in discussions with Yukon for some time, and I think this is a good place to move forward with that, about trying to move the city limit lines. I think we have 18 or 19 common miles of section line road with Yukon. And we would like to get to a point where we move those city limit lines so that one city or the other is responsible for all 18 or 19 of those miles. And we thought this was a good place to start that. Councilman Dash, and obviously the maintenance for those miles, 3.5 miles of Mustang and Mustang Road in Northwest 10th, will lie with the city of Yukon from this point forward. The bond money that we did spend, we spent a total of about $3 million in bond money on those two projects, and the total cost of the projects was about $21 million. So I think that's, no matter where the taxpayer lives, whether they live in Yukon or Oklahoma City, if they use those roadways, I think we got a pretty good deal for the bond money that we spent. So the maintenance will lie with Yukon, and we hope to move forward with other such agreements with them to try to get all of those common section line roads either in Oklahoma City or in Yukon.
Pat?
Just a quick comment. I had the same email that Councilman White got. And I think the important thing is Oklahoma City citizens are not being denied to use that road. It's not like we gave it away and can't use it.
You don't think they're toll it?
Yeah. Well, they may. I don't suggest it, Your Honor. If we could do all our roads and have somebody else take over the maintenance, I think we'd be well ahead in the long run. But I think the key point, to answer that lady's concern, was we did spend the money, and the Oklahoma City citizens will benefit from that good road for a long time. And then the maintenance will be taken over by Yukon, and they'll continue to benefit from that good road. And so I think it was a win-win situation, in addition to clearing up a very confusing situation about the maintenance of these roads that are when the center line of the road determines the boundaries of the cities involved. It does cause confusion. I had one in Piedmont where we had a bridge the bridge was out in Piedmont, but it's passable in Oklahoma City, the same bridge, so it was sort of a confusing kind of thing for a while. But anyway, I think it was a good project, and I heartily support it. The lady's concern was well taken, but I think that the bottom line is the citizens of Oklahoma City will continue to be able to continue to use that road for their benefits.
Any other comments or questions?
I have a number of those kind of roads situations, as I'm sure anyone that represents the outer edge of the city has several. I've worked to try to bring Del City to the table on one that's been a constant problem for me for years, and can't seem to do that. But I think this is a good thing. I just wanted to make sure we talked about it. The letter was well thought out. I think it did not take into account the long-term maintenance, and the maintenance costs are probably over the long pull exceed the cost of building most of our facilities. So I just want to make sure we talked about it before we voted.
Mayor, if I could real quick, I actually talked to the lady, and it was actually, that was the end of a long string of emails where she asked some questions, and we tried to provide her answers over the past few months on different questions that she had raised on that. On the street renaming issue, I tried to explain to her that we were exploring this road situation with Yukon long before the street renaming came up. And it's unfortunate that in some of the papers, specifically the Yukon papers, indicated that that was the sole reason that this annexation was going on, was just so they could rename the street, and that's not true. We've been talking about this road maintenance and changing issue for a long time with them, so it wasn't that. And in fact, if we didn't do anything, Yukon could still name their half of the road whatever they wanted to on Mustang Road. They could, you know, the west half could be Yukon Parkway, and the east half would still be Mustang Road. But so it's not like it was driven for that, or we felt some pressure to do that on that. I also told her I would ask, and Dan, I think you're here to answer the question. She raised a question with me over the phone that the ordinances we have in place for annexation or de-annexation address the issue of, she used the words goodwill, and she also used the words being beneficial to both cities. She didn't see how bond issue money that we'll be paying on for some time, paying for that and then giving them the road, that's her quote, was beneficial to us. And do you see anything in this annexation, de-annexation that is goes against any of the wording in our ordinances at all for that?
I've reviewed the statutes on that, and I don't think there is anything inconsistent. They are still liable for, or the city's still liable for the cost of those improvements, but as Dennis said, they'll still be getting the benefit of those improvements.
Okay. So you don't think there's anything illegal or improper about this at all?
No, sir.
Okay.
Right, ready to vote? This is item 8A. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. On to item 8B. Item 8B1 is sale of the bonds for 2011.
Mayor, those bonds have not been sold yet. They sell at 9 o'clock this morning.
Okay.
And it'll take a little time to put together the results and determine the winner. So we'll have a resolution coming forth, but we may have to put, well, we need to put this off later in the meeting, and we may even need to recess depending how quickly the rest of the meeting goes.
All right. You expect that in an hour or so? Or
I would expect that in a half hour, 45 minutes.
Okay. What should we do with item 8B for now, Francis?
We can just hold it.
All right. Just move on to 8C. All right. Item 8C is a public hearing regarding dilapidated structures in an HP district. We're going to deal with item C1C today, which is in Ward 2.
A.
My mistake. So C and B were deferred?
Right.
Okay, so we're going to deal with item C1A today, which is also in Ward 2. Sam?
Thank you, Mayor. This is in the Paseo Historic Preservation Landmark District, so there's any time within the historical district with a dilapidated house, we take extra caution. Historical Preservation has reviewed this, and of course, being in a HP area, would like to see it retained. I have talked with members of both the Paseo Neighborhood Association and Positively Paseo. Positively Paseo is the group that acts as a nonprofit developer in the area, and for the last 15, 20 years has rehabbed numerous homes in this area, have approached these owners some couple years ago, have made no headway at all with respect to getting that property, and it continues to sit. Nobody's been in it for more than 5 years, continues to sit with no work whatsoever done on it. So both the Neighborhood Association and the development, SEO Development, Positive SEO, are in accord with the staff recommendation that we leave it on the dilapidated list. So unless someone's here to speak to that, that would be my recommendation, to just leave it on.
All right. We'll be voting on item 8C1A. Any comments or questions on the item? All right, cast your votes. It passes unanimously. We voted on item 8C1A. B and C have been deferred. All right, we're on to item 8D. This is a list of dilapidated structures. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone here wishing to speak under any item listed under 8D? All right, cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Move on to 8E. This is a public hearing regarding unsecured structures. Is there anyone here wishing to speak under any item listed under 8E? All right, cast your votes. And those pass unanimously. On item 8F is a budget amendment.
Mayor, we're doing three things this morning in this budget amendment. First is we're adding $2.5 million into the IT Internal Service Fund to fund some technology needs that we have, specifically some desktop replacement, some field computers, upgrade network infrastructure, and the expansion of the internal Wi-Fi system, and then systems for online bid submission and some other upgrades that are going on. So a number of things along those lines. The second is with the Court Administration and Training Fund. When we have fines, a portion of that goes back to the state. And since fines are coming in higher than anticipated this year, we've exceeded that number, so we need to increase that budget authority to pay that into the state. And then the last has to do with the dollars that were taken from the Maps for Use Fund to fund public safety positions this year. And because of the increased revenues, we're recommending that those revenues that came in over projections this year be used to repay back those MAPS 3 use tax dollars, and we've discussed that in the budget workshop and previously, and council asked that we bring that forward. And those are the items.
So, Jim, does that mean that the funds that go back into the use tax will then be available for capital expenditures?
That's correct.
For public safety should be designed?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
One other thing I want to make sure on, that this doesn't change the bottom line of the budget at all. Is there some internal transfers, essentially? We're not spending any more money than we originally anticipated.
Well, there are additional revenues that have come in, and that isn't the same answer for all those items. These are all because of additional revenues that have come in.
Okay.
Some we're putting back into IT, some we're putting back into the use tax fund, and then the other additional revenues on the fines and forfeitures, we've got to pay a portion of that back or onto the state. I'm not answering your question.
But in terms of additional expenditures, we don't have any additional expenditures except money that came in from revenues that were higher than we anticipated.
That's correct.
All right, we're voting on item 8F. We need a motion.
Second.
Cast your votes. Passed unanimously. Item 8G1 is a revocable right-of-way permit to hold the Redbud Classic April 9th and 10th. It's in wards 2, 7, and 8. Sam, you will make a motion? All right. We have a motion and a second to hold the Redbud Classic. Cast your votes. Passed unanimously. Then item 8G2 is to hold the St. Patrick's Parade in wards 6 and 7 on March the 19th. All right, cast your votes, and that revocable permit is issued as well. Item 8H, I understand we do not need executive session on this item?
Correct. Mayor, this, if you recall, was a lady that came here a couple of weeks ago and had the trash in front of her house, and had the lien against her property, and she had the son that brought it, or I guess it was a boyfriend of the daughters that came in and brought in all this property. And so what we've done is set up a repayment schedule with her. And so that's why we struck the claim, and we're getting the money, and we just set up a rescheduled payment for her to make it so she can afford to make the payments on it.
Okay. We have a motion? All right, cast your votes on item 8H. Passed unanimously. Item 8I is claims recommended for denial. Is there anyone here wishing to speak under any item listed under 8I? Lucy, would you come up, please? Good morning.
Good morning.
We'll need your name and your address for the record.
Lucy Scholes, 14917 Carlingford Way, Edmond, 73013.
And you're here on item L1A.
I believe so.
Yes.
I'm here I did receive this correspondence from the city denying my claim. However, the correspondence from the city does not show the level of frustration, the amount of time and effort I've taken trying to correct this matter. The original, this started September of 2009. I had a main leak in my front yard. I called the city to report that. They came out a couple of times, said they didn't find anything. In December, they started repairing the main leak in my front yard. They repaired that. It damaged the drains. The hole itself was left there for 6, 7, 8 months. I have, most of this is correspondence, emails, phone calls that I've made trying to resolve the issue. We did get the hole filled in. The drains were not repaired. They came back out, dug the hole out again, repaired the drains, put the dirt back in. Months later, they put sod on the area, had to come back, redo it. The sod was not, it left a low spot. They tore the curb out, repaired the curb, had to come back later, repair it again because it was not correct. It was wavy. They did not put the holes in the drain to drain the water out. They came out and did that. They put in two of the drains instead of 3. They came back again, did that. Let's see. And I spoke to about 6 different individuals, or corresponded with about 6 different individuals trying to figure out how to get this resolved, as well as 2 or 3 contractors for the city. I simply wanted to come today to say I think the citizens deserve a better level of service from the city. No one should have to go to this extent just to get a repair made. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for coming down, Lucy. Okay, do we have a motion on claims recommended for denial?
Can I ask a question? Ms. Scholes, how long did you say this process was going on?
Originally, it started September of '09.
And this was based on a complaint that you made to the city?
No, I called the city to say I had a leak in my yard, in my front yard. Part of my yard stayed wet, just soaked. And I asked the city to come out and take a look at that. So in September, they came out, took a look, and they said it had to do with my French drains. Well, that was not so. I made a few more calls, and the lady that services my area came out, she took a look, and she says, no, I don't think that's correct. I made a few other calls. Finally, in December, the city came out, I believe the 2nd of December, and they said, no, it has nothing to do with the city. And then miraculously, on the 9th of December, the city comes out and they start digging the hole to repair the main leak in the yard.
So you're saying that the main was on the easement on your property?
Correct. That's what I was advised by the city.
Is there someone from staff? I just wanted to ask the question in reference to why did the city do any digging at her property?
Why did the city do any digging?
Yes.
I guess ultimately they discovered that there was a leak on the main and decided to make the repair. Initially, they thought it was groundwater. That's the information that we received.
Was it in the right-of-way?
Yes.
The main was in the right-of-way. It was in the yard, on her side of the yard, behind, but it's in the street right-of-way, but would be in that area that would appear to probably be in the front yard. But clearly within the right-of-way of the street.
So was it ever determined that the water that she had complained about that was soaking her yard, was that water coming from the leak, the water main that ultimately was repaired?
My belief is yes, because there was a work order to do a main repair.
Okay, you've lost me. What is your claim for? The $3,000, what is that for? What damages is it for?
I have a retaining wall beside the lake.
Okay.
And we have the drains draining the water away from that retaining wall.
Okay.
Since the drains were blocked from December of '09 up until maybe July, I don't have the exact date of the repair, all water drained to that wall. And in June, of course, we had the monsoons, and that really caused most of the damage. My contention is, had the repair been made, we would not be here today because the drains would have been repaired prior to that rain of June of 2010. So that's my claim, is that the city damaged the drains, did not repair them for months and months. All water from those drains went to the retaining wall and damaged it.
So the damage from your French drains not working, you claim, is from the work we did repairing the water main?
My drains and the neighbor's drain. 2 of the drains belong to me, 1 belonged to the neighbor. And all of that water, yes, drained to the wall and damaged it.
Okay. And
Good morning, Ms. Schultz. I'm Marcia Slaughter, the
Good
Utilities
morning.
Director.
Good
Nice
to
to
meet
meet you. We've communicated several times, as you can tell. Yes, the relationship between the French drain, the property is sloping toward a beautiful lake in the back of the property. The relationship between the piping and the French drain is that there's a curve in this area. The location of the water main was not precisely recorded, and I believe legitimately our staff, while it was a mistake, did believe that they were seeing a wet spot from the drainage system that the property owners had installed. It took a long time to diagnose. It's very embarrassing for us. We did make a pipeline repair. We were very slow to get the property restored, which is what my communication was with Ms. Schultz and why she involved me in the process. But I can testify, it took us a long time to diagnose, longer than we would expect to correct, but there was a main break. It was repaired.
And you lost me again, because did I understand, Marcia, that you just stated that we made a mistake in identifying the location of the leak?
The original diagnosis from our field folks who do that as their primary job was that the drainage system on private property was the source of the wet spot.
Okay.
We checked it a couple of times in dry weather and wet. Our experience was we saw it in wet weather and not in dry. Eventually we brought out our leak detection equipment and did find the leak. Again, it had to do with the line being in a slightly different location because of the curving of the street, and the original plans had changed slightly in the field.
The claim is for what happened is we went out to repair that. It was located in the right-of-way. When we repaired it, the exits from her drains to the street were crushed. That's my understanding of the claim. So it took a while for us to get back out and repair the exits from her French drains. The extraordinary rain of June 14th occurred, and at that point they still were not repaired. And when those occurred, her retaining wall collapsed.
No, it did not collapse.
Okay.
And I'm saying that from December of '09 up until the drains were repaired, including the June 14 monsoons, all of that water from the neighbor's drain and my drain went toward the wall because those were not repaired. They were not functioning.
Okay.
Does that clarify?
Was the city obligated to repair the French drains?
Well, they damaged them when they dug the hole. I don't know if they were obligated.
Were they in the right-of-way?
I'm sorry?
Were they in the right-of-way?
I don't know where the right-of-way is.
Yes, they're located in the easement. And as the dominant tenement in the easement, Ms. Scholl's French drains are her responsibility to maintain.
But yet they were working properly until we went out and worked on the main.
That's correct.
Then we left the drainage unattended in reference to the damage that occurred after our work on the drain. Is that right?
That's my understanding, yes. Good morning, Ms. Schultz. Good morning. I got involved in this after the storm in June. I believe I was notified of the situation. I went out and met with Ms. Schultz and spoke to her on the phone a couple of times. It was apparent that her private drainage system had been compromised during the repair of this water line for some time. It was difficult for me to see that the private drainage system being impaired had a result on this retaining wall, which was on the other side of her yard. We engaged the services of our on-call civil engineering consultant to go out and take a look at this and give us an opinion on whether or not the compromised private drainage system had a detrimental effect on this retaining wall, or if they thought that the damage to the retaining wall was something that had occurred over time and really had nothing to do with the private drainage system. It was the opinion of our on-call consultant that the capacity of that private drainage system was so small that any significant rainfall, that runoff is going to wind up running across her yard and her driveway and wind up at that retaining wall anyway. And so their opinion was that even if the drainage system was compromised, it really did not have an effect on the retaining wall, the damage to the retaining wall.
And that was the final ruling, and not that I'm arguing with the experts. I'm arguing because it was left unattended for months and months and months. And had the city repaired the drains, we would not be here discussing this today. That's why I'm here, to express my level of frustration with the city. That's my problem. And yes, of course, I would like the city to repair it, but I want you to know the level of frustration and the level of service that's going on. It's really unacceptable. And it's a black eye on the city of Oklahoma City.
I have a question. When the drains were crushed,
yes.
Excuse me, did we give you notice that they were ruined or that they were broken?
No.
Okay, so when it's the city, we require notice, but we didn't give you any notice to repair your own drains.
I was not notified they were crushed.
Okay.
After the hole was dug.
So how would she know that her drains were messed up?
It was visible.
It was visible?
The hole that was left, you could look in there and you could see that that they were crushed, cut, whatever the case may be, so that when it rains, the hole fills with water.
Okay. Is it our practice, is it the city's practice that when we disturb, even in the right easement, and I know the answer to this question, but I'm just asking it, is it our practice that when we disturb the easement that we put it back in the condition it was found? Sprinkler systems, everything, yard, everything?
When it's possible for us to do so.
Okay. So like when a water line is replaced in a neighborhood and they mess up a sprinkler system and the grass, they come back, they repair the sprinkler system, they put turf back down, the whole deal?
We make simple repairs where we can. We try to leave our customers whole every time we visit them. Sometimes that's not possible. The report I received from line maintenance about the drainage system is that they made repairs. The system was more complicated than they understood.
To her drainage system?
To the end point of the drainage system. I think it's, here's the way I understand the issue. There were 3 drainage pipes that were connected. There were 2, the way I recall this is there were 2 exits on the curb for 1.5-inch size drainage pipes.
Actually 3.
I believe you. Well, I mean, the point is that French drain is not a really complicated system. If she can visually see the damage, it sounds like to me we didn't even give an effort to actually make her whole. It would be one thing if we tried and it didn't work, but it appears to me if you can see the damage that we didn't do what we normally practice, which was trying to make the person whole with simple repairs.
I believe we followed the normal practice. I believe that if there was a mistake, it was getting involved early in defining for about 3 months whether there was actually a main break in her front yard. I believe that the drainage issue finally is a question about the entire system, not about the part that we damaged. Well, there's no question that we had to do restoration work. I don't think we did our best job. I agree with Ms. Schultz that she had a horrible time. The question, of course, for policymakers is the liability at hand.
Let me see if I can summarize the final question that's going on here. The issue of how long it took to fix the French drain and why didn't we do it right the first time and why didn't we catch it and doing all that lies to her frustration with how long it took to get through the city bureaucratic process. Is that correct? But we have got to the point where the French drain is repaired, the main is repaired, and now the issue is, did all of that work time and all of that stuff damage her retaining wall to the point for her claim of $3,000? And we're now saying that our engineers say that it was not the cause of her retaining wall damage. So even though it took forever to get her French drain fixed and her yard back to normal, and her curb and all the other things she cited, none of that had anything to do with the retaining wall damage that she's trying to claim. Is that fair?
That's correct. That's what they're saying, and I disagree with that. You can't, the experts are the experts, but you can't tell me, had those drains been repaired, that there's no possibility that this would have happened. That's what I'm saying.
Well, I would like, let's just, cut to the chase. The fact of the matter is that the independent experts was hired by the city. And it's just like in the real estate appraisal business, if you don't give the right appraisal, pretty soon you're not going to have work. So it's the same thing. My guess is if Ms. Scholes hired an independent engineer to assess it, they may come back with completely the opposite information.
Very correct.
But so I think it's a judgment call. I don't know how you can say, well, this wouldn't have happened if they would have been fixed.
There are actually two additional reasons why we recommend denial of the claim. One of those is that it's actually in the easement, and whatever a property owner puts in the easement is subject to our easement. And also, we actually have no duty to repair or replace it. We just undertake that voluntarily. And additionally, the damage was on December 9th of 2009, and the claim wasn't filed until December 21st of 2010, so it's actually barred by the statute of limitations, too.
And that's the other thing. It was saying that it's outside the year limitation. However, do we not take into consideration all the emails back and forth trying to resolve the issue? The law is the law. I do understand that. However, should we not consider all the emails and all the phone calls?
And I would also like to add that this did occur during our extraordinary rainfall on June 14.
Was there, in all these communications that was back and forth, was there any understanding that there was efforts being made to try to resolve this, or did we just flat out deny any liability from the beginning, and this lady would have had notice in reference to the statute of limitations, or did we continue to have communications and continue to go out and look at the property with some expectation or some understanding that maybe this might get resolved?
That was my expectation. The communication back and forth is that I was thinking we would get it resolved. And that was my expectation.
All three drains working now?
I'm sorry?
All three drains working now?
They are.
Okay.
Well, we need a motion on the claims recommended for denial. All right. Any other comments
Before
or
we
questions?
vote, I'd
Yeah,
like to comment that from September 30th, 2009 to the paving being replaced for the third drain, July 15th, 2010, I think that Ms. Schultz has a great point. That indicates a terrible mistake by the city. And I'm not sure that despite the statute of limitations, despite the thing, we ought to just pay this and go on. We did not do this right. Now, I'm not being overly critical. There's a lot of factors involved, but that's too long a time for this thing to go on.
Okay.
I agree with Councilman Ryan, and without pointing the finger at anyone, kind of like Councilman Walters, you probably could get a French drain expert to go out to her property and say this French drain is sufficient to hold water to a certain level, and just because somebody said that this French drain wouldn't hold a 2-year rainfall due to the diameter of the drain lines. I find it kind of strange that these companies that install French drains, and I don't know exactly where this community is, but I'd be willing to bet you that when you start developing and building retaining walls and having French drains installed, and there's more than one, the neighbor has French drains, she has French drains, I'd be willing to bet you that the company that installed those French drains would probably stand by their workmanship and the quality of their lines that would say that those lines will sustain a sufficient amount of water to move from that property to where it's going. And it just seems kind of strange that we talk about this easement issue, and, you know, I've never quite understood why do we always want to put the burden on the property owner when we're out working on a project, and then when something goes wrong you say, well, it was in the easement. But we were on the easement. And some of these properties, you have to have use of the easement in order to have full use of the property. I've got a situation where people are complaining about one of our crews, one of the crews, not the cities, but one of the contractors that went out and did the sidewalks. And they just disturbed all of the grass, and when they called, they said, well, that's on the easement, it's not our responsibility. But the citizen didn't remove the grass, they didn't disturb it. The people who were out there doing the work did. And then they just simply walk away and say, well, it's on the easement and it's not our responsibility. So I agree with Councilman Ryan. I think this is a situation where we should not let this lady walk away with a understanding that we just didn't have a heart of concern about this. You know, without pointing the fingers at anybody, I just think this should be worked out.
Okay. Well, would someone like to make a substitute motion that we vote on item 8LE separately? All right, so we're going to vote on item 8LE. Everybody ready to vote? All right, cast your votes. We're voting, this is to deny the claim. A yes vote would deny the claim for Mrs. Schultz. A yes vote would deny the claim. Cast your votes. And the motion fails by a count of 3-6. Have a motion now to vote on the item 8I, 1A through D.
Thank you for your time.
He wants to make a motion to approve it, and it would be a confession of judgment since it's over 20.
All right. Second. All right, we have a motion to approve her claim that had been listed on the claim recommended for denial. A yes vote will approve her claim. Cast your votes. And it passed unanimously. Now I need a motion on item 8I, items A, B, C, and D. These are claims recommended for denial.
Second.
Cast your votes. Those claims are denied. On item 9, these are claims recommended for approval.
Second.
We have a second. Any comments or questions on item 9, claims recommended for approval? All right, cast your votes. These claims are approved. Item 10 is items from council. We'll start with item 10A. This is from Councilman Ryan. Pat?
Thank you, Your Honor. This is a resolution that would essentially say the City Council is committed to living within their budget. Goes to the sustainability issue that we approved several weeks ago as part of our strategic plan, stripped of all its legalese, pardon me, Kenny, that it just says that we will not spend more than we take in revenue on personal services, that particular part of our budget. And it puts a cap on what we'll spend, and that's it. In its simplest form, that's what it says. I think it's a step in demonstrating to people that we're committed to staying within our budget, that we're not going to pay, not going to incur costs that we can't afford to pay.
Just want to point out, this is for introduction today, and then it'll be finally adopted a week from today on the 15th.
Part of the introduction today, I would, we'll get staff here if there are questions. We furnished an additional item that was left out of the packet earlier that shows the impact of the averages over the last several years, what it would be. So it's additional information. If there are questions, we have a week to get those questions answered and come back and vote on this next week.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Pat. So this is just being introduced today. You have a, Pat, is that a motion?
Motion introduced, the resolution.
Cast your votes on item 10A. Passes unanimously. Item 10B is from Councilman Bowman. It has to do with some improvements and the council's intent to make these improvements at Northwest 56th and Western.
Thank you, Mayor. Last Tuesday, we heard a spud, class and curve spud, that would allow additional parking. And I asked at that time, due to considerable discussion at the Planning Commission around the drainage issues, that we separate the drainage issues from that vote, and that I would like to see a special resolution to address that. Just since we don't have a picture, but to try to describe the area that we're looking at. Meadowbrook neighborhood is now, with this spud, encompassed on about 3 sides by the class and curve expansion development that's occurred over the last 5 years. From the very beginning of the first development, drainage has been an issue with the neighborhood. It's been discussed at every step and every PUD and every SPUD amendment in the 5-year history, and it's been continued to be monitored by the neighborhood. And to their point, it continues to be a problem. Whether it's worse or not due to any of the development is just certainly an opinion at this time. But there's no opinion with regards to the problem of drainage in the area, either by the Johnson and Associates or by our own Public Works people. There are undersized pipes, and there have been, and it is causing the drainage that continues to persist. I'm bringing it in the form of a resolution because I think it's an unusual situation that calls for a special resolution. I think we've squeezed, in the last 5 years, we've squeezed everything possible from this neighborhood to accommodate the extensive development of the class and curve. And in doing that, the drainage still persists. And that to make this neighborhood whole, coming through this process, that we address in some kind of timely manner an issue that is not just here in the last occasion where we heard the parking lot expansion, but it has existed, as I said, for the entire 5-year history of this development. That we find the time and the funds in some appropriate time, reasonable time, to address the drainage issue that's there and make this neighborhood whole. So that's my resolution. I understand, again, the unusual nature of it, but there are unusual circumstances that I think dictate it.
If I could just add a couple of things to Mr. Bowman's comments. We have verified that this is not worsened by the Chesapeake development, that they have done adequate retention on site, that this is a historic problem that's out there. And there's a couple of problems. One is that there's a drainage ditch that goes down that has, we're not sure it was adequately constructed at the time, but it's probably silted in a little bit over the years. But the primary problem is you go down a block from there, there's a very much an undersized crossing underneath the roadway. It's really the bottleneck. And so we'll address both of those issues, the swale or the channel as it gets down to it, and the crossing underneath the street.
Larry?
Point of information, Jim. In the 2007 bond issue, there was some monies allocated for specific drainage projects around the city.
That's correct.
Was there not also some unallocated monies?
Yes.
Then, if this is, if this isn't, well, let's assume this is the urgent problem that Sam outlines, why haven't we just addressed it already without this resolution?
I think it really it came to light in the negotiations. It's been during heavy rainfall events, and I think probably it really came to light with the heavy rainfall issue that came out last June when we had the rainfall. That was probably a heightened awareness with the neighbors out there. To my knowledge, there hasn't been any building that has entered, any water that's entered into a building as of yet. And so we are aware of the situation and are taking steps to remedy. And you're right, there are some unlisted funds that can be used for drainage projects of this type.
I would make that resolution.
Okay. A motion and a second. We'll be voting on item 10B. Cast your votes. Passed unanimously. Other items from council? Gary, you want to get us started? All right. Sam, any other comments from council?
Just one. Mayor, several of us were at the zoo last night for the preview of the elephant habitat. I've heard these convention consultants talk about Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3 cities and how we need to do this to become a top tier. I thought about that last night, and this zoo, whatever the top tier is, this elephant exhibit raises us to the top tier of the zoos in the United States. I honestly think it is massive enough and attractive enough and splendid enough. It almost would warrant a gate in itself, just an attraction in itself. It's almost a standalone exhibit. It's that good. I think it's really going to be that part of the zoo that puts us now at the top of zoos. Very, very impressed by it.
Me too. Larry?
Jim, I'd appreciate if you'd pass along to Mr. Clowers my appreciation for the support that his staff gave. We had a neighborhood meeting way out in far west Oklahoma City last night at the Frisco Ranch folks. They had a concern dealing with some streets. His staff was able to supply information prior to the meeting and a solution that the residents all appreciated. And that kind of response does go on, and we do have a level of service to our constituents. I'd also like to thank the residents of Hilldale and Musgrave Pennington for welcoming my wife as my ambassador for the meeting since I was out west, and I'd like to encourage those neighborhood associations in the inner part of the city to keep moving forward and keep projects on the line to improve the quality of their lives. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thanks, Larry. Brian? Meg? Skip?
Yes, I would also like to commend the zoo. Last night I was also out there for the elephant exhibit, and I really think that Oklahoma City has probably one of the best zoos in the United States, and the terrain and the landscape at the Oklahoma City Zoo is just absolutely awesome. And last night when the lights were on all around the area, it was just a beautiful sight to see, and the staff and the everyone as part of the zoo had just an outstanding movement of people from the gate all the way over to the elephant exhibit. And so we'd just like to acknowledge that on behalf of all the staff at the zoo and the friends of the zoo. So they're doing a fantastic job. So thank you.
Pat?
Ron, I'd just like to second all the things said about the zoo last night. My wife happens to have a particular affinity for elephants, and she was really impressed with the whole process out there. It's a world-class exhibit. I think Sam was exactly right to put us on the map. So the other thing is I would like to say a word of appreciation to the voters of Ward 8. They were kind enough to give me the opportunity to serve for 4 more years. I do appreciate their trust, confidence, and I will do everything I can to demonstrate that I really believe in what they gave, the mandate they gave me. Thank you.
On item 9, city manager, item 11 rather, city manager reports.
Mayor, it may be appropriate to go back to item 8B1, which is I see our financial folks have come into the room, and I'll bet they have some results for us this morning.
Good morning. While Kenny's passing out the documentation, I'll just go ahead and introduce this. As you are aware, we received bids this morning for an award of $43 million in GO bonds. We had 12 bidders, which it's possible that that is a record number for us in the number of bids that we received. The mayor called me a couple weeks ago from New York. He was going on to Fox Business News to talk about the municipal bond market, and several of the analysts were saying, don't buy municipal bonds. And I think this morning when you hear a discussion of how well we did today, you'll understand that that certainly doesn't apply to Oklahoma City's municipal bonds. The first item is item 8B1. I'd like to recommend the award of purchase for $43 million of general obligation bonds to Robert W. Baird and Company for a true interest cost of 3.604055, which is the lowest true interest cost bid today.
Any comments or questions for Laura?
I think they did a great job, Your Honor, because this is the municipal bond market is chaotic right now. Really
Turbulent was the word we were
turbulent.
using.
Well, I think it's
Right.
chaotic. I think it's one step beyond turbulent, but that's just an opinion. And I think they did a great job, and I think it's a reflection on the quality of our staff and the quality of the bond rating and reputation the city has. It's well served. Good job.
Thank you.
I would second the motion.
Okay, I'm just going through it myself here. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other comments or questions? We're voting on item 8B1.
Question.
Okay.
Do we have any indication of what other municipal bonds, what the bids were on other bonds that have been sold, say, within the last 2 weeks?
I did ask our financial advisor this morning to compare us to another, to a AA sale to see what the difference in our AAA rating was worth to us. And we did estimate that we saved about a little over $100,000 a year based on our AAA rating. I don't have any information right now, and it's often difficult to make the comparison. Certainly with the smaller number of cities that do have a double AAA rating like we have now, there aren't many out there that are selling bonds right now, so because the market is considered turbulent. So I don't have a good comparison right now. Certainly as we look to what happened in the market today, we might have more information for you at a later time.
Well, one would assume that we would be comparable to other AAA bonds, but the comparison between the AA is what I was after, is the difference between
About 25
what the
basis
value
points,
of it
about
was.
$100,000 a year on this particular sale. I would also point out that when we originally prepared the estimates, as we got closer to the sale, we estimated anywhere from 40 to 90 basis points higher when we were estimating how well we might do today. So it's much better than we had expected. And I think that the number of bidders helps drive that also. You know, it's obviously very competitive for our bonds.
All right, we have a motion and a second on item 8B1. All right, cast your votes. This ordinance is approved. We need to vote on item 8B2. All right, and this item, okay, we'll be voting two more times, once on item 8B2 and then once on the emergency. So how about a motion on the ordinance? Cast your votes. Passed unanimously, and then a motion on the emergency. Cast your votes on the emergency. It passes unanimously, too. Thank you,
Thank you.
Laura.
I'd also like to recognize the members of my staff who participated in this sale, Kenton Sudol, and then also our bond counsel and financial advisors, John Williams, Gary Bush, Dennis Whaley, and Colby Eccles from PFM. Very, very supportive, very much helped us get an analysis that helped us with preparing the sale and with the analysis to award the bid today.
Just, Laura, just one question. How many bids did we have on the last sale?
I believe it was 9. We may have had 11.
11?
Yeah.
All right, we're on to citizens to be heard. We have one person that is signed to speak, John Taylor. Morning, John.
Hey, good morning.
Name and address for the record, please.
Hey, my name is John Taylor. I live at 4600 North Warren, Oklahoma City. I live on a funky neighborhood. It is very confusing how to get there. The trash trucks come down my street at like 8 times, you guys. 8 times. I believe that if we could put all our trash cans on the same side of the street, then the trash trucks would only have to go down the street once instead of twice. I hope that kind of makes a little bit of sense. I mean, I'm hoping that makes a little bit of sense because I believe that could save like a little bit of money on fuel. The roads are horrible. I still have to drive on these roads, and then the list of the trash trucks has to drive on the roads. I think it could save some road wear as well.
Yeah. That's in the area of the Waste Management Services, right? 46th and Warren, be Ward 1.
I believe that's correct.
Okay. We'll ask Waste Management to kind of review the way that they service that area and see if there is something to your complaint.
Well, it's just not my area, but I'm just thinking the whole city, wherever applicable, if the trash trucks only have to go down the street one time instead of up and down every street. And I mean, it's only another, 10 feet or, most everybody has to push it out 40 feet to the curb. If they got to go another 10 foot to the other side, it shouldn't be that much of a big deal. And I think we can save some money, y'all.
Worth checking into. Thanks for coming down.
You're very welcome. And can I say one more thing while I got you guys here?
Sure.
You guys, I used to smoke cigarettes, and I used to be a big-time smoker, and I was one of the worst, I was one of the most inconsiderate smokers that I didn't even know how bad I was. These right here, you guys, are going to save our lives. I'm a musician. I have to, and I used to have to live with secondhand smoke because of, I know people need their nicotine. These are those electronic cigarettes, you guys. It is just water vapor that comes out. And there's only 40 chemicals in here as opposed to 4,000 chemicals in cigarette smoke. 40 chemicals in here, only one of them is nicotine. This actually doesn't even have any nicotine in it because I don't want to go around with any nicotine. But anyways, they have low nicotine all the way to high nicotine, any kind of flavor. They got like 400 flavors of these. So you can find the flavor that for the smokers. And like Mr. White was talking about last week about politics as a compromise. And we have been, as non-smokers, there's like a mass of non-smokers that will not go to anywhere because they don't want to smell like cigarette smoke. Even if it's not the health issue, it's at least the smell issue. This right here, this actually smells good, you guys. It actually does smell good when you blow it out.
John, we got to move on.
Okay.
Thanks very much for coming down. Thank you. All right, we are headed to the Myriad Gardens for a tour of the improvements that we've made and hopefully open soon. And we will adjourn the meeting over there.
Just want to let you know that it's not raining at this point in time. It's overcast and the sidewalks are a little bit wet, but I think if you'd like to, we can go over there and get a first-hand view without getting too muddy or too inconvenient. But the mayor's generally in charge of providing good weather on these type of events.
It's not raining?
Do we have a limo that's going to pick us up?
No, but thanks for asking.
The limo's not picking us up.